Look! Get some help! Take Dr. White down in the psycho section.
Hey guys, it's Matt from IGN, and I'm here with the review of Manhunt 2 for Nintendo Wii, PlayStation 2, and Sony PSP. This will hopefully be a very spoiler-free review. I don't want to show you levels from later in the game, and I'm going to try to keep storyline elements out of this too. I don't think there's any secret that there's a lot of controversy surrounding this game because it's extremely violent, and also because it had to be toned down before it was finally released. Just in case you haven't been following though, Manhunt 2 is the sequel to 2003's PlayStation 2 and Xbox game, also very violent, and also a stealth action title. We actually refer to this game around the office as Splatter Cell because it does kind of feel like Splinter Cell in some ways, but it's over-the-top gore all over the place. In Manhunt 2, you take on the role of Danny Lamb, a one-time scientist who has for some reason become involved with the Project, which is this seedy organization whose government funding was pulled because of its horrific experiments. The title really begins when Danny wakes up and discovers himself in an insane asylum, really, and his only ally, this man named Leo Casper. So the two of them go through this asylum and then eventually make their way out into the city beyond. And to do that, a lot of murder has to take place, basically. As I said, Manhunt is coming to PS2, PSP, and Wii. For the purposes of this review, though, we took a look at the Wii version, and so you're going to see that all the footage we have actually shows off the Wii control scheme. That being said, the content is basically the same between all three versions, so if you're a PS2 owner, I think you're still going to get all you need to get out of this video review. To really simplify the process, in Manhunt 2 you run through environments, you find weapons and items, you hide in the shadows, and eventually you sneak up on enemies and murder them in really gruesome fashion. If you played the original Manhunt, the control setup is about the same. An on-screen radar shows you where enemies are and also shows you the radius of your own sound as you move through the environments. If you carelessly run about, enemies will eventually hear you, and sooner or later you'll be forced into melee combat. If you're a smart player though, you will actually sneak. You'll stay to the shadows, and that'll get you the jump on enemies. Danny's loosely moved through the environments and can feel a bit sluggish here and there, but for the most part, he does control adequately. He can climb objects, he can strafe against walls and peer around corners, he can use context-sensitive items, and he can use projectile weapons too. It's when you're in the darkness, new weapon in hand, and you're approaching an enemy from behind that the game really feels intense and it's actually a lot of fun. The stealth mechanics in Manhunt 2 are much more enjoyable than the action ones for a few reasons. First is that when you find yourself, surrounded by 3 guards, the camera system usually breaks. You'll never be able to get the appropriate angle, and you're eventually just going to have to run for your life and start over again. Second is that group AI usually teams up on you, backs you into a corner, and beats you to death before you have a chance to even get up again. And third, all those deadly weapons which do so much damage during the executions are, far less impactful, let's say, during melee combat. The fact that the AI in the game hears you move around the environment and may respond to that is a really cool feature. But on the other hand, the AI is not so smart, as you can see in this video clip, which we're going to speed up to show you how it doesn't adapt at all to what I'm doing. When you sneak up on enemies and stay behind them, an on-screen meter will change from white to yellow to red, and these reflect the level of the gruesome kills you can perform, red being the most violent. Performing these executions is really fun and really entertaining. It's a payoff in the same way that performing fatalities in Mortal Kombat is. Unfortunately, Rockstar was forced to edit and really censor the game at the hands of the ESRB in order to get an M rating, and as a result these executions aren't nearly as gruesome or violent or quite as entertaining as they once were. In fact, I went back and played the original Manhunt in preparation for this review and found that the majority of the executions in that game are now more violent than those in Manhunt 2. This is simply because you can actually see them. In Manhunt 2, these executions have been blurred and darkened and filtered to the point you can't even tell what's going on half the time. And there's a 3-second or so lag after executions in which you still can't see what's going on, in which enemies can approach and start fighting you. Don't get me wrong though, because the game is still very gory, and in some occasions it's even scary. I would still rate this as one of the goriest, most violent games on PS2 or PSP, and certainly on Wii. To top everything off, Manhunt 2 features a storyline and an atmosphere that goes a little extra. You've got characters with smart voice work, and a wide variety of environments to explore, not to mention, like I said, some real scares here and there in addition to the gore. Plus, the storyline is not quite as predictable as you might think. Clearly, Manhunt 2 is not a perfect game, but it is a good one, and if you're looking for something a little darker and a little grittier, particularly on Wii, where we don't see a lot of those games just yet, I would definitely recommend you check it out. IGN's PlayStation team gave Manhunt 2 a 7.5 on PS2 and PSP, and I've given it a 7.7 on Wii due to the more interactive control.